Welcome everyone! Get ready to question pretty much everything you thought you knew about how the Great Pyramid of Giza was built. Today, we're not dealing with vague legends. Nope, we're talking hard numbers, multi-ton blocks of stone, and a mystery that has stumped humanity for thousands of years. So, let's get into it. I want you to travel back in time with me. Picture it. The year is 2560 BCE, during the reign of King Khufu. You're standing in the middle of the Egyptian desert, staring up at a structure that's about to become the tallest thing built by human hands on the entire planet, and it'll hold that record for the next 3,800 years.
And this isn't just a building, it's a literal mountain of cut stone. We're talking over 2,300,000 individual blocks. The average one weighs almost 3 tons, but some of them, like the granite slabs in the King's Chamber, weigh up to 60 tons. Now, here's the number that is just, well, it's mind-boggling. To finish this thing in the 20 years Khufu was on the throne, the Egyptians would have had to quarry, transport, shape, and perfectly place one of those massive blocks every 2 minutes. Think about that. Every 2 minutes, 24/7 for 2 decades straight. So it all comes down to this one simple question. How? How on earth did a Bronze Age society with no modern machinery, no cranes, nothing like that, pull off one of the single greatest engineering feats in all of human history? That is the question we are going to unpack today.
All right, so that brings us to our first part, the paradox in the desert. We're going to lay out the core problem, the very thing that makes the Great Pyramid so endlessly fascinating. You've probably heard the usual suspects, right? The history books tell you about giant ramps, Hollywood movies show you tens of thousands of slaves being whipped into submission, and of course there are always those late-night documentaries that whisper about a little extraterrestrial help. These are the popular theories, and we're about to see why they just don't really hold up.
But what if all of those theories are wrong? What if the real key to lifting all that stone wasn't brute force, or whips, or spaceships? What if it was something much quieter, a powerful force hidden right under their feet the whole time? Water. So let's jump right into our next section, debunking the myths. This is where we're going to put the old theories to the test against, things like physics, logic, and actual archaeological evidence. Let's start with the big one, the idea you hear the most, a giant ramp. On the surface, it sounds perfectly reasonable, doesn't it? Just build a long slope and drag the stones up. But have you ever really stopped to think about the sheer physics of that? This is where it gets wild. Look, experts like the Egyptologist Bob Breyer figured out that to pull a 2-ton block, the slope can't be steeper than about 8%. Well, to get to the pyramid's full height of 146 meters at that gentle angle, the ramp would have to be 1.6 kilometers, a full mile long. Now, for the kicker. The amount of material needed to build that ramp would be about the same as the pyramid itself. They would have essentially had to build 2 pyramids just to get one. It just makes no sense. Okay, so if the ramp theory is out, what else is there? Well, this is where we have to look down instead of up. See, the Giza Plateau sits on an incredibly high water table. The famous Egyptologist Zahi Hawass even wrote about this back in 1999 when his team was excavating the nearby Osiris shaft. They were constantly fighting off flooding. This isn't a fluke, it's a critical feature of the entire area.
And what's really cool is the Egyptians already had the basic tech for a water-based system. This thing here is called a shaduf. It's a simple, ancient tool that uses a lever and a counterweight to lift water from one place to another. They were absolute masters at moving water. So what if they just applied that skill on a truly epic scale?
This brings us to a fascinating idea called the hydraulic transport hypothesis. The theory goes that the Egyptians actually built a kind of water elevator inside the pyramid as they went. They'd pump water into internal shafts using hydraulic pressure and hoists to float and guide the blocks upwards. Now, this doesn't just solve the heavy lifting problem. It also gives us a really compelling reason for all those strange, empty rooms and hallways inside the pyramid, something other theories have a really hard time explaining.
Okay, let's move on and debunk the next big myth, the one we've all seen in movies a million times. This idea that the pyramids were built on the backs of thousands of slaves. Is there any truth to that at all?
Well, the archaeological evidence says a clear no. Back in 1979, the actual village where the builders lived was discovered right next to the pyramids, and what they found completely flipped the script. These weren't slaves. They were free Egyptian citizens, skilled, paid workers who got plenty of food and even received medical care. See, every year the Nile would flood, making farming impossible. So the pharaoh put these farmers to work. This was a national project built out of pride and faith, not out of fear. And what about the idea that this technology was just too advanced for humans, that it had to be aliens? Well, history shows a very clear, very human learning curve. It all started with Imhotep's step pyramid. Then, Khufu's father, King Sneferu, had a couple of spectacular failures, the collapsed pyramid and the famous bend pyramid. But he learned from those mistakes and finally nailed it with the red pyramid. Khufu's team inherited generations of hard-won knowledge. It wasn't magic, it was evolution.
So, all of this leads us to our final act, the legacy of the builders. After peeling back some of these layers of myth and mystery, what does the Great Pyramid really stand for?
When Sir Flinders Petrie, who's basically the father of modern Egyptology, showed up in 1880, he completely changed the game. Before him, people saw the pyramids as a treasure chest to be plundered. He saw it as a priceless library of human knowledge that needed to be studied and, most importantly, preserved. And that right there is the ultimate takeaway. Sure, the tombs were robbed thousands of years ago, but the real treasure was never the gold. The true lasting value of the pyramid is what it tells us about the unbelievable organizational skill, the engineering genius, and the sheer raw ambition of our ancestors. It's a monument to what humans are capable of.
So now, I'm turning the question over to you. History isn't some dusty old book that's already finished. It's a living, breathing debate. After looking at the evidence we've talked about, which idea makes more sense to you? Is it hydraulic technology, a clever theory that uses the geology of the land and the known skills of the Egyptians, or is it pure, raw manpower, somehow figuring out a way to defy what seems like impossible physics to drag millions of tons of stone up mile-long ramps? The debate is still very much alive, and every new discovery just gets us one step closer to the truth.